What's your best? It's not what it looks like story. I was walking along one night with my wife and we bumped hips accidentally. I bumped her again. She bumped me back harder and it escalated from there. For my final victory I timed it just right to knock her into a lamppost so she fell over, laughing. Whoop whoop, a police car had come up behind us and only seen the killing blow. She instantly started laughing so hard at the absurdity of it that tears were streaming down her face and they grabbed me to stop me attacking her anymore. I had been going over to help her up. Honest officer. It took quite a while for her to stop laughing enough to explain. Longer still for them to believe us. A bunch of friends and I were not sober. 6 of us were heading home and one friend who was in a wheelchair kind of missed the curb cut while attempting wheelies. Does that count as drunk driving? She upturned and fell in a heap in the street. Anyway, cops thought we were beating up a handicapped person. Once she stopped laughing hysterically things got cleared up. She was totally fine. BTW. A few years ago, I was walking my dogs and they spotted a squirrel and yanked me off my feet. My glasses broke in the fall. I hit my face and scraped my hand quite badly. Cut to a few days later. God knows why but the wounds have swollen. Most of my face is covered in bruises and one eye is black. I went with my brother to the gun range. It was a previously planned trip but I can only imagine what the owners thought, seeing a battered up woman come learn to shoot. Driving back to college from my grandma's house, holding my hand up to my ear to hear myself better as I practice for a choral performance a couple days from then. Cop pulls me over, is surprised to see that my phone is actually packed away in the back seat when he asks me to retrieve it. Asks me what the hell I was doing. And I get to awkwardly explain the thought process behind hearing yourself better when holding a hand to your ear. After a long stoic pause I panicked and couldn't think of anything else to say so I went just try it. And started singing on the side of a 2-lane highway in the middle of bumfuck nowhere. He let me off with a warning. Edit, I don't know why I got a warning. I like to think the guy was just as embarrassed as me in the moment, and tried to make that traffic stop mean something more than I pulled over a choir kid because I thought I saw a phone and distracted driving is bad. So he let me off with a warning. He does however come across as some sort of Footloose-esque villain though, and I agree it was a super weird interaction. When I was a freshman in high school I had a gay friend. I'm female. I wasn't allowed to have boys in my room but for the upcoming talent show Andy wanted to use one of my dresses so I took him upstairs to try them on. My dad walked in right as Andy had pulled his pants down and was standing in his underwear. My father was not thrilled and, more importantly, failed to take in that I had a dress in my hand, and he had a dress in his hand, and there were more strewn about. There was definitely a fire that had to be put out that day. Oh, God, this reminds me of my own story. I had a good female friend in high school named Natalie. I had a big crush on her and we ended up dating later but at the time she was with someone else. Anyways, she came to my house to work on a project after school one day before my mom came home. She finished up and then had a date with her BF at the time, much to my lovesick chagrin. So she needed to change. I told her she could change in my room. She did and then left without incident. I was chilling downstairs when my mom got home and went upstairs. I'd quite she did it but for some reason she decided to look at my room and then I heard her say my full name, loudly and slowly, the way she only did when I was in serious trouble. Confused I ran upstairs to find my mom holding a lacy, see-through, blue thong. Apparently, it fell out of Natalie's bag when she was changing. The worst part was there was no way I could convince my very angry, traditionalist, of a mom that I didn't have sex with her when the reality was I very much wanted to do just that. When I was 16 my boyfriend's, now husband's, parents took me on a beach vacation with them. His dad was kind enough to carry my luggage to my room and his face was bright red. I just thought he was hot, but my boyfriend came in and goes, "Sue, my dad says your luggage is vibrating." I had one of those handheld face washing devices that you put a little makeup remover pad on in my bag and it had turned on. His poor dad thought I had brought a vibrator, so I actually had my BF take it down and show them what it was so they wouldn't think poorly of me lol. We all had a great laugh. Edit, typo. I was in the Navy, stationed on an aircraft carrier. In the sleeping compartment I was assigned to, we had lockers called coffin lockers. Our beds were on top of the coffin lid, which we opened the way you would think to get to our stuff. These were stacked 3 high, with not quite enough room to sit up while in bed. We were on a deployment, so we brought whatever we couldn't live without for 6-12 months. One of the things I had was a rechargeable shaver. Well, apparently when I closed my locker the one night before going to bed, I jarred the battery cover, and the shaver intermittently vibrated against the wall of the locker. However, I didn't realize it at first. I heard the vibration and assumed that the girl assigned to the bunk under mine was going to town on herself with the vibrator. It went on and on. So then I started thinking that it wasn't her with her vibrator. I got out of bed and opened my locker, and when I saw the shaver, I realized what I had been hearing. At that moment, the girl laying in her bunk below mine opened the curtains and gave me a look. I showed her the shaver, and explained what happened. We both had a laugh when she said that she thought I had been going to town on myself with a vibrator. At a concert and some dude flicks his roach into the air when he's done smoking it, the cherry lands right on top of this girl's head, just burning into her hair. I was standing right beside her, so I just immediately swatted the burning ember from her hair. She turns around, along with her boyfriend, and are like, "WTF was that?" I tried to explain that someone had thrown a roach into her hair, but they really didn't seem to believe me. Just thought I was some weirdo who likes to whack women on the top of their heads, I guess. They just turned back around visibly annoyed and walked away. Then some guy behind me is like, "Nice job bro, I watched the whole thing. Why didn't you say something when they were questioning me?" Anyways, no harm done, but it was a funny story. A few years ago I went with my dad and my then baby sister, I was 17, to get a cake, and once we did I was holding her while my dad was paying. The cashier called my sister cute and said I looked good for someone that just had a child. Being the genius I am, I laughed and said I was only 17, and the cashier instantly went wide-eyed, assuming something you could guess about my dad and my relationship. He has a good amount of white hair, so he looks fairly middle-aged in comparison to me. Before I could say anything she was sort of stuttering, avoidingly asking if we were thing, until I explained that he was my father and that the baby I was holding was not my daughter lol. Theater kid in high school, had a scene where I had to tie a girl to a chair with a specific knot so it looked real but could be undone super quick by her just tugging something and it all coming undone. Anyway, I'm practicing the knot with her in the classroom during an off period so I could get that right. Cue gym teacher walking into the room to ask theater teacher something and seeing a girl gagged and getting tied to a chair while we were the only two in the theater classroom. Fun times. Edit. Few quick things I thought I'd add after replying to comments. Scene was after her character gets kidnapped, so that's why we went to all the lengths to make her look like a hostage. She agreed to everything we did, even suggested to gag herself to be authentic. Take that how you will. Teacher who found us was super chill and knew most of the theater kids anyway and supported the theater anyway. He told us through the visible concern, "Please tell me this is for a scene cause I don't want to be there for this trip to the print cup." I told him yeah, just practicing to get the knot right, and another scene is on stage. He just nodded and went to find theater teacher. Again, I never thought to take her gag off to let her help me explain cause I'm an idiot. Later our theater teacher decided we'd have certain places to practice sensitive scenes. I brought a hammer to the office to hang a whiteboard. I left it in my laptop bag and forgot to take it out at home. Days later my boss came up behind me, asked do we have a hammer in the office. Without thinking, I reached onto my bag and handed him the hammer, still looking at the computer screen. A few seconds later I realized my boss was still standing behind me. I turned around and he was just standing there staring at the hammer. He said seriously? ... You carry a hammer with your laptop? Are you a serial killer? I live in not the best neighborhood in Brooklyn, and a few weeks ago I was walking my girlfriend's small black three-legged dog late one night. There's a lot of guys that hang out by a busy corner drinking, smoking on their stoops. One of them went to take a leak by a building's trash area. He was facing the building with his back to me. So, as he was peeing, Pepper, the dog, decided she was going to be stubborn and just sit down. I kept trying to get her to get up so we could go home. As I was calling her and telling her, "Come on, let's go," the guy peeing locked eyes with me through a mirror that was in the trash pile. Yo, what the fuck? He couldn't see the dog I was talking to because she was 10 feet behind me in the shadows. He thought I was trying to fight him while I was watching him take a leak. Not at all the case. As he was zipping up and turned around, Pepper hopped up and trotted by and broke all the tension. He was like, "Oh shit, my bad. I didn't know you were talking to the dog." We laughed about it and carried on our separate ways. When I was visiting my hometown, I drove past our old childhood home where I'd grown up, decided to take some photos of the house for nostalgia's sake. There were a few little kids playing in the front. Perfect. The house is still filled with children's laughter and all that good stuff. Take out my camera. Cue an angry bald man rushing out of the house screaming at me for taking photos of his kids. Kids bawling, me driving away in a hurry without stopping to explain. I was in a relationship with a girl who was paraplegic and needed a wheelchair. We made a cosplay of the Lamia from Monster Museum and we went into a part of the convention center that was empty to get a couple shots of the costume before going out into the crowd. At the time we didn't know it was technically off limits, so I help her out of the wheelchair and lay her down so she can get comfortable, and I was wheeling her chair off to the side to be out of sight for the photos. I always fuck around too much and I was pretending to run away while taunting her. I did it all the time and it always made her laugh. I think I said something like, "Good luck trying to leave without your wheels," and before I could turn around to see where I was going I was getting wrestled to the ground by the convention center security. We cleared it up and slap on the wrist for me cause we were somewhere we weren't supposed to be. Security guards got in more trouble cause they're not supposed to touch people, but their hearts were in the right place since they thought I was robbing a girl who couldn't walk. Not me, but I heard a story from a health and safety trainer. He goes on the road a lot, up and down the country. One day he's at a petrol station, and goes to grab something out of his boot. As he does this, two old people walk past with worried faces. He thinks nothing of it and carries on his journey. As he's going down the motorway, he noticed a police car a few cars back. Again thinking nothing of it. Then an unmarked police car swerved in front of him, and a police car speeds up to pull him over. He stops and is immediately pulled out of the car by armed police officers and held at gunpoint. The armed officers go straight to the boot of the car, open it, and start bursting out with laughter. Turns out when that old couple walked past earlier they spotted the child training dummy and thought it was real, so they reported it. Senior year of high school. End of the year and it's been balls hot for days and for some reason the AC isn't working. I have this pain in my taint and scrotum area and I'm complaining about it to my friend next to me in biology class. I really don't want to go tell the nurse or have a parent look at it, so I ask my friend if he'll take a peek. This was before everyone had a cell phone with a camera to do this sort of thing. He says, "Sure bro, I got you." The teacher tells us to split into pairs to quiz each other with flashcards for the final and then excuses himself to the bathroom. My friend and I pair up and head to the back of the lab where there's a walk-through office to the next lab and close the door behind us and move out of sight of the window doors, and I drop my shorts and undies and he squats down to take a look as I move my junk up and out of the way for a clear view. In walks the teacher because he wanted to grab his water bottle out of the office on his way back from the bathroom. I'm standing facing him and my friend is squatting in front of me, definitely looking like he's blowing me from the teacher's perspective. Teacher freezes and can't find words as I rush to cover myself and my friend turns around and blurts out, "I'm not sucking it, I'm just looking." Teacher backs out of the office and won't look either of us in the eye for the last week of school. Edited to add for everyone asking. It just turned out to be a boil. I managed to drain it later in the shower and it healed up fine. A friend of ours won an award at university. so a bunch of us went to support him. Several bottles of wine later, we were hammered and our friend won. So after the ceremony we decided to all jump on him in celebration. A great idea clearly. Being drunk we weren't very subtle about it, so he saw it coming. So he sensibly ran off. We chased him. It's at this point I should mention he's a black guy and the rest of us were all white. What the security people at this event saw were around 10 white guys running after a black guy yelling "Get him! Don't let him escape!" Security guards took us all down and didn't believe he was our mate. We still talk about the race hate run of 2008. TLDR. Tried to bundle a friend in celebration. Security thought we were committing a racist hate crime. I was helping out a female coworker by giving her a ride home from work every day. She was going through a divorce and was having car issues with her ex. We both worked the same hours and it was a short distance, so I was happy to help. Anyway, one day she told me that a mouse had gotten into her bedroom, which was over her garage. I told her it's probably a simple fix, like maybe the mouse came up through a heat vent or a small hole somewhere near the floor. I go up to her bedroom and get down on all fours looking for somewhere that the mouse was getting in. I took off my glasses and set them on her nightstand next to her bed. I found a small opening by a plumbing pipe and jammed some paper in it to block it off. I got up and told her that was the only place I could see and that I thought it might be fixed. I then walked out to my truck and drove home. 2 hours later, I get a call from my friend who says that her soon-to-be ex had come over and found my glasses on the nightstand. She tried to explain to him that it was completely innocent and I was just looking for a hole where the mouse may have gotten in. He just looked at her and said, "Yeah, I am sure he was here looking for a hole." Similar thing happened to me, but it was because I had a terrible headache at work, and the work colleague who gave me the headache pills failed to mention they were effervescent and had to be put into water. Worse, I was just running from work to get on a 2-hour train trip to my parents' house, so I swallowed the pills on the train with a sip of water from my water bottle, and immediately felt something was very wrong. Now not only do I have a terrible headache, but my intestines are fizzing. My guts were not impressed, and soon my bowels began to cramp. This was the very last train for the day, so if I got off at a station to go to the toilet, I'd be stuck overnight in the middle of bumfuck nowhere. However, I knew at one station the train would stop and sit there for a few minutes while the guards changed over, but there was no way I would make it to the toilet carrying all my luggage and back again in time, so I risked running off the train, abandoning my luggage, for an express toilet bowl explosion. Fortunately, the carriage was empty, because I don't know what people would think, seeing someone leaving a bunch of luggage on a train, and absolutely sprinting away like their life depended on it. They might have thought it was for another type of explosion. Fortunately, I managed to get to the toilet, clean up, and get back on the train before it took off with my luggage. But it was still a pretty miserable train trip. When I was 21, I went on a trip to Kentucky Lake with some friends, a guy's weekend trip. It was a great first day. We hit the water, drank a ton, had a blast. None of us used sunscreen, which was dumb in retrospect. Well, one of the guys got so burnt that he couldn't even move. He had to basically sit in the shower, let the hot water pour over him for as long as it would last. While this was happening, a friend and I walked down to the marina bar to get hammered and eat. When we came back, we saw my sunburned buddy lying naked on his bed, face down, spread eagle, and our other friend, his brother, walking in with a bottle of lotion with a big grin on his face going, "You have no idea how great this is." We all stood there and looked at each other for a moment and my friend on the bed goes, "You know what, at this point I wish I was about to get butt fucked. That would probably hurt less than how I feel right now." Reminds me of this encounter on one of the mudlarking channels I watch, when someone sees a couple of strangers walking into the woods near a highway with a shovel, and what looks like a rifle case and calls the police. Meanwhile, the hapless tipper digging vintage bottles from a no-dump site starts hearing helicopters and doesn't realize they have anything to do with him until they're surrounded by fully armed police. Ha ha.